Well, welcome everybody. I'm Christina Johnson. If we haven't met, I am founder of the Emerge Weight Loss Program, and I have Barb with me here today, who recently finished Emerge, maybe a couple months ago, I think is when you finished up. And I invited her to come on and share a little bit about her just experience and about some of the changes she's made over the last several months to create a healthier lifestyle and just the impact that it's had on how she feels and her health. I think that sometimes when we talk about eating clean or having a clean and mindful eating lifestyle, it's hard to picture what that actually looks like. And so I think it's fun to hear from women who have made these changes and just to hear more behind the scenes and practically what it looks like, how hard it is, and all of that kind of stuff. So welcome, Barb. Thanks for coming on. Do you
Thanks
want
for having
to just
me.
briefly introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Barb. I started with the Emerge program. I believe it was mid April, um,
Okay.
and I've really enjoyed working with Christina. It's been a delight, and luckily we're still working together. So
We are. Oh, well, thank you. Okay, so I guess to kind of set the stage for everybody, do you want to talk just a little bit about some of the things you were struggling with before you started Emerge? Like what was going on with your health, your weight, that kind of got you interested in making changes?
um, so a little over a year ago, I was working full time, found out that I was diabetic, um, and at that point, knew I needed to make some changes. So I tried to do some things on my own, um, and it didn't seem to matter what I did. I I wasn't. It wasn't making any difference.
What were some of the things you were trying on your own?
Um, I would, well, number one is exercise.
Okay.
Um, I am an avid bike rider. I don't ride quite as much now as I used to, but I used to ride my bike every single day, um, as long as it was not icy.
Yep.
Um, I would ride in the rain, the snow, whatever, the 110 degrees, thinking that as long as I was exercising, I should be able to lose weight, and this
Yeah.
was not the case.
Okay.
And I'm I wasn't out for a joyride. I was out, and while
You're getting your heart rate up.
yes, I do seriously enjoy it no matter where I ride my bike, but or how fast I'm going.
Yeah.
Um, my main point every day was to get some exercise in, and that was my favorite way to do it. So I did it at an extreme level.
Okay.
I probably rode, um, I would say a minimum, I would say probably around 100 miles a week.
Okay. So even with all that, the weight was not coming off.
Even with that,
It's
I,
frustrating when you're that active and not
yes.
weight loss.
My doctors would look at me and say, we don't know what's going on. You're very active. And still it wasn't enough. I became diabetic over a number of years.
Yeah.
And I was riding my bike all that time and actually going to the gym at some point as well. And it wasn't making any difference as far as my health went. I look healthy on the outside, but the inside wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed to make some changes and some things. I would try eating different foods that I thought were healthy and good for me because they say so.
Yes.
Um, they say so on the box, or they say
Yes.
so, um, you know, on TV, or
Yeah.
things like that. What I've learned is
Yeah.
that just because it says it's healthy on the box probably means if it comes in a box, it's probably not good for
Yeah.
me. Um,
And that I'm sure that's such a frustrating spot that probably a lot of people can relate to. It's just like where you feel like you're doing the right things, you're trying to eat healthy, you're being super active. Your doctor is even kind of at a loss as to why things aren't improving. It's hard to know what else to do at that point then.
It is, and I was relying heavily on my doctor's advice or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And don't, I don't mean anything about my doctors. I
Yeah.
just think that they were perplexed as well.
Yeah. I mean, they're
Um,
not trained in nutrition and I mean, not heavily trained in those
right,
things.
right, and it's just an area that I would tell them the things that I eat, and they're like, "Well, it sounds like you're eating the
Yeah.
right things,"
Yeah.
and and I thought I was eating the right things, but none of it seemed to make any difference. And I just continued to gain weight,
Okay.
gain weight. And even at my heaviest, um, you know, some people might say, well, that's not bad, and that's kind of what my doctors were saying. And I was saying to them, but I don't feel good.
Yeah. What did
Um,
that look like for you? Like, in what ways did you not feel good?
so I recently had a reminder of in what ways I didn't feel
Yeah.
good due to life circumstances and things going on. Um, I would get up in the morning and feel like I never slept.
Yeah.
Um, I would wake up and be exhausted, and I think part of that was due to stress, which since then I have retired. Um, and that is, I have to say, that has helped. I have some opportunities that in retirement that I couldn't squeeze into my life schedule when I wasn't retired.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing what I know now, I could have done some things to help alleviate, some of those issues, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I I'd wake up in the morning feeling just exhausted, like I never slept, even though I was a good sleeper. I
Yeah.
rarely woke up in the middle of the night. I slept well. I wasn't a restless sleeper. Nothing like that. I would sleep, a full probably 6 to 8 hours easily and not wake up in the middle of the night. So I knew I was probably getting an adequate amount of
Yeah.
sleep.
But you weren't
Um,
feeling rested afterward.
Never felt rested. I felt exhausted. I felt a lot of stress, which working does
Yeah.
increase the amount of stress. I think, especially in the job I had, and I just didn't feel good. I would wake up, my knees would hurt. I would have pain in my legs. Um, and this wasn't just occasionally. This was all the time. I would say 90% of the time, almost every single day, I would wake up and, I'd wake up feeling that way in the morning
Yeah.
and with just very low energy, which is unusual for me.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a high energy sort of person.
Yeah.
I like to be on the go and I like to be busy. And so, that but I didn't feel good. I
Yeah.
just felt like something wasn't quite right. My
Yeah.
skin was very itchy,
Mhm.
physical symptoms. My skin, especially my shins, I know that sounds very strange, but my skin was extremely, extremely dry, especially my shins.
Mhm.
I even had um, about I would say every couple months, I would get a rash on my scalp. And my doctor would give me an antibiotic for it and it would go away. But they didn't know why it was happening. And I didn't either. Neither one of those things. Those were the two of all the other things going on. Those were the two things that really,
Yeah. So it
you
sounds
know,
like it was this combination of you had the extra weight on your body that you couldn't lose no matter what. You were diagnosed with diabetes, and then also just these like random health symptoms where you're just not feeling very good throughout the day. And
right.
no real explanation on what's causing these things or what to do differently to feel better. And I
No,
think it's so frustrating when you don't have answers. Like you don't know what's causing some of these things or what to do differently. So I mean, people are probably wondering, like you said, you were trying to do things before that you thought were healthy. Can you think of any examples of, especially in regards to nutrition and what you were eating? Is there anything you were doing back then that you thought was like helpful and healthy and you now realize wasn't as helpful as you thought it was?
Um, like I said, I was eating things that said they were healthy on the box. I
Mm,
knew that I should probably be watching my carbs,
yeah.
and my sugars. I at that time had a ridiculously large sweet tooth,
Mm,
um, and I craved sweets constantly. Constantly, I there were days when I knew I wasn't eating right because all I ate was a bunch of sweets. I would get up in the morning and have a Pop Tart or what are those things you put in the toaster? A
like a
toaster.
strudel thing?
Yes, I get up and
I didn't know they still made those.
yeah, I don't even know if they do. But I would get up in the morning and have something like that and think, oh, that's not that bad. But then for lunch, I'd have, I'd think, oh, it's okay. I had wheat bread on for my sandwich for lunch. And then I'd come home at dinner and I'd have a burger with a salad and think, oh, that it's okay.
Yeah,
Those are things that are not bad for me. I had a wheat bun. I had wheat
yeah,
bread for lunch. And for my body, it
yeah.
my well, those things might work for some people. They did not work for me, and I didn't even know it.
And
Um,
that's a great point right there is that like it isn't across the board one size fits all, but especially in regards to wheat, like you've figured out that gluten is one of the triggers for that, like the rash you were talking about on your ankle and your scalp. And so for you especially, gluten is not a friend. Uh,
no,
yeah. So, okay, so then you join Emerge. Talk about like what were some of the changes that you made that that were really helpful? Like practically, what did it look like to start making some of these lifestyle changes?
First of all, I learned so much.
Mhm.
I am by far not an expert, but I learned so much and things that made sense to me when I looked at the reason why, when you shared with us why those things might be happening. And I could connect that to myself. Um, and I, I learned so much and I started looking at what I was eating and even went through my cabinets and I got rid of all this sugary stuff. And when I got rid of this sugary stuff, and it was 2 trash bags full of stuff.
That's an
um,
eye opener.
right. And it wasn't one of those bathroom sized trash cans.
It's a
It
kitchen.
was a kitchen trash
Oh, I
can.
didn't realize that. I don't think you've told me that before.
Probably hadn't. And that I kind of started doing some of my own research a couple weeks before I started working with you. And
Okay.
that's when I went through my cabinet
Mm,
and took out the sugar and took out the things made with flour and because I started wondering maybe those were the things that I could think of that I was eating in extremes, eating a lot of. And I just thought, I've got to do something different. The other thing was my blood sugar was not regulated, even with the medication they had me on. My blood sugar was all over the place. I never knew what to expect from day to day. And that could have contributed to how I was feeling so exhausted and tired and literally slow.
yeah.
Um, the brain fog was real. And, so I started doing a bit of my own research, but even at that, I thought, I know myself and I do better when I have some guidance. And so I knew when you came along that this was a good direction for me. Um, so, when I started working with you and learning some of these things, I started paying attention to what kind of meat I was eating. I tried not to eat processed foods, even um, processed lunch meats, things like that. I started trying to, I literally quit going to restaurants for quite some time.
Uh,
Um, and which is hard because my significant other likes to eat out.
yeah.
Um, and so I had to kind of just send him on his own, and he was used to going with me. Um,
Yeah.
so
Was
that was
that, yeah, did, but Have you started going to restaurants again since then?
A little bit.
Okay.
Sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold.
Yeah, no worries.
Um, I have started going to restaurants again. I feel like I can now, and I'm okay. I
Yeah.
know better what to choose on the menu.
Mhm. Yep.
Sometimes I do still crave a big juicy burger, but it's I don't mind not eating the bun.
Okay. Yeah.
If I'm having a bread craving for some reason, I might eat a quarter of the
Okay.
bun
Yep.
with my burger, and I'm okay with doing that at this point. I believe I've determined that I don't have a gluten allergy. I probably have an intolerance.
Okay.
And taking the sugar out has made a tremendous difference. And once I did that,
Yeah.
it was once I just knew it wasn't in my house and I wasn't going to buy it.
Yep.
I did find other things to replace that sugar craving a bit, like fruit.
Okay.
Um, and I since have even reduced that a little bit, although I still love fruit. And I do still eat it. I just was really depending on it a lot
Yes.
for a little while. Um, because I felt like, well, if I'm going to have something sweet, um, it's a natural
Yeah.
sweet.
Yep.
And so even doing that, I felt so much
Mhm.
better getting rid of the sugar. The brain fog kind of went away. Um, I don't feel like I have brain fog like I used to.
Okay. That's great.
Um,
What else have you noticed?
Well, I'm not sore and achy when I wake up in the morning. I sleep well, which sleeping was not really a problem for me to
Yeah.
begin with, but I wake up feeling rested. I
Mhm.
wake up feeling like I have some energy. I feel like I can get out of bed and attack the day.
Yeah.
Um, I don't feel I don't feel like I'm dragging in the morning even after I've slept 8 hours.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I still have those mornings where I just wanna lay in bed and look at
Yeah.
my phone.
Of course.
But, um, I you know, I it's I get up, I feel like I can do what I need to do.
Yeah.
I'm not so tired. I, can most days, I would say probably 99% of days, I make it through the day and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, "Oh,
You're still
I'm
going strong.
still going."
I know,
And
I
that
feel like that's pretty amazing just to think about the changes and how you felt. Like to pretty much clear up the brain fog and to have that much more energy and to get rid of the aches and pains. And really, the biggest change you made was just changing how you ate, cutting out the processed foods, or at least cutting it back,
yeah,
reducing those added sugars, cutting back on flour, and just yeah, eating clean. Like it's
yeah,
amazing that that alone can help in all these different ways.
yeah. And I don't have I'm trying to think the last time. Well, it hasn't been probably that long since I ate processed food just because of some things going on in my life. Uh, I had to simplify a little bit,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And the longer, so it was probably um, I would say 2.5 to 3 weeks of uh, like lots and lots of stuff going on. Um, but I don't have the achiness anymore. I don't have the achy knees.
Yeah.
I don't feel exhausted all the time anymore. And switching to like non-processed foods, um, I learned so much. You taught us so much about like what to eat
Okay.
in place of those processed foods.
Uh,
And that I think made a huge difference for me is
yeah.
learning about those things. And um, well, I do have to, I have to put some thought into my grocery list. I have to put some thought into what I'm going to make for dinner, what going to have for breakfast. It's not that once I started learning, like what are the things, and what things can I, what I mean, the other thing is I can eat anything I want. I just have to realize, you know, if I eat a lot of that, I have to know,
Yes.
you know,
That it will
it,
have an impact. And that's a great point. Like nobody's telling you you can't eat sugar, you can't eat the bun. But it's about educating yourself on how those things affect how you feel. And then you get to make the ultimate choice
right.
if you want to have that, if it's worth it or if it's not.
And if you have itchy shins to the point where you could itch them till they bleed every single day, you'll
Yeah.
stop eating gluten.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm curious because a lot of people like hearing some of the changes you made, like cutting out sugar and cutting back on the flour, not eating out for a while. Like that can feel like a lot. And then having to spend extra time, preparing food. I think for a lot of people who haven't tried that before, it can feel pretty overwhelming. And I know you said like you had a huge sweet tooth before, and so you were one of those people eating lots of sugar. Um, so can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how hard was it to give up those things? And yeah, how much time and effort did it take you?
I started a little bit on my own and then realized that I without some supports in place, I probably wasn't going to be able to maintain that. And I
Okay.
knew for me it had to be a long-term lifestyle change if I really wanted to make a difference in
Yep.
my health. And I'm not a sparkling example of the greatest health, but I know it's better, and my blood work shows that it's better too.
Yeah.
So,
What did
and
it
this,
look like? You said you knew it needed to be a lifestyle. Like, how did you accomplish that? Like, how did you make sure that you were doing it in a way that would be a lifestyle, not just a short-term fix?
I started looking. I mean, I guess just taking a real look at what I was doing,
Okay.
and what I was eating, and the impact that I needed to make versus the impact that I wanted to make.
Mm,
Um, because those are two different things. You can want it, but doing it is something completely different. And
yeah.
so I just I had to make sure that when I went to the grocery store, I bought things that were going to be, number one, easy to prepare,
Yeah.
and things that I would want to eat. So I looked for recipes, and that was something that um, your website is very helpful with. Is there's recipes. I also the other thing was I could go weeks without eating a veggie. Um, and and I knew they were good for me. I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want
Take them or
it.
leave them.
Yes, but uh, that was the other thing I worked really hard to incorporate was primarily for me. Protein
Yeah.
for me is my number one thing. We've kind of discovered um, protein first and veggies second, and
Mm,
I try to focus my meals on those two things. I found recipes that I like, and I knew I had to spend some time meal prepping to make that easier.
yeah.
And I don't always, even now, I don't. I'm not like a religious meal prepper,
Okay.
unfortunately. But I do meal prep. A lot of my meal prep is when I make dinner, I make more.
So you have it for
Um,
the next day.
I have it for the next day, or I can put some in the freezer, or I have it for breakfast the next day and lunch the next day, or something like that. So, I sometimes do the thing where Sunday or Monday I'll go to the grocery store and spend the day, or spend a few hours meal prepping after that. I don't do that all the time. So I do think if I did that all the time, it would make things easier because I
Yeah.
have done that, you
Yeah.
know, and I know that it makes things easier.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I do have a little more time now to cook, and so I will cook something for the evening meal that can be put in the freezer. That's kind of my kind of
Mm,
daily meal prep, so to speak,
yeah.
seems to work better for me. And so I just make extra of whatever it is. If I'm doing turkey meatballs,
Yep.
I'll do 2 pounds of turkey
And
meatballs
then freeze
and
some of it.
freeze
That's
some of
actually
it.
good stuff.
I've also found different foods um, that are that are what I want to say clean for
Yep.
me, that I like and taste good to me, and things that I don't mind eating on repeat.
Yes.
I like, there's some pasta sauces that I like, even though I don't eat pasta a lot, but I'll eat, you know, turkey meatballs with sauce.
Yeah. Yep.
And I've found vegetables that I really like, and I like how I prepare them. Um,
Yeah. Would you
so
say that overall you enjoy the food you're eating now? Like, because a lot of people think when they're eating healthy or dieting that, it's chicken and broccoli every night, or it's kind of boring or not very tasty. So, what has your experience been with that?
Um, you know, there are certain things I make that most people would think are kind of boring, but I like them.
Yep. So,
You
you
know,
enjoy it still.
I enjoy it. I'm one of those people who could eat certain foods on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Um, but there are also other things like, for example, chicken and turkey meatballs. Those are two
Mhm.
things that I make all the time, and I almost always 100% of the time have them on hand,
Okay.
um, and homemade.
Yep.
Um, and I don't eat pasta. I just don't eat pasta.
Yeah.
I don't feel good when I eat pasta.
Yep.
And that's another thing I discovered. For me, pasta is not a thing. It just
Yeah.
makes me bloat up. I feel like
Mhm.
I've eaten the entire
So, it's not
feel.
worth it then.
It's not. I can't. It's
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
So that was another thing I discovered, that I can't be going out to the Italian restaurant to eat pasta every night. But I have an alternative to,
Mhm.
say, lasagna that involves zucchini.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I really love. And so I've been able to adapt some other recipes. I
Hmm.
know I can look at a recipe and say, okay, those ingredients are okay, but I can switch. I have learned what I can switch out to, um, to make that recipe a little more clean.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, which is great so that you don't have to feel like you're missing out on all your old favorites, but you can make them a little bit healthier so that you can eat it and still feel good afterward.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it sounds like, I mean, you did make a lot of big changes and changes that are hard, like cutting out sugar and, cutting out things like pasta. But it sounds like having support was helpful for you, finding healthier alternatives to some of those foods. Um, Yeah. Would you say now that is this way of eating is it worth it to you? Like, do you enjoy it enough to keep doing it? Or is there a part of you that's like, "Oh, I wish I could go back to how I used to eat and I wish I could have all that sugar again."
There's there's never, every now and then I think, oh, I wouldn't mind having a Snickers. And then I have one and I'm like, yeah,
Not quite what I was thinking,
no,
remembering it would be like.
I'm okay leaving that behind, and just, Halloween was difficult for me. The
Okay.
Halloween candy and Easter candy are two things that get me. Um,
Mhm.
but I definitely, I could spend the whole day eating Halloween candy before I started, with Emerge. And now I know how that makes me feel.
Yeah.
So I don't do that anymore. But I do know that I can eat one or two Snickers over a couple days, and, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and you kind of get a little reminder of, oh yeah, that stuff's not good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
love you keep highlighting that fact that you're noticing now how different foods make you feel. And when you can start to put that connection together, man, it just changes everything because those foods are not as enjoyable. It's not as enjoyable to eat a bag full of Snickers and then feel miserable afterwards. And so
right.
Yeah, it's great. And so I hope people just really hear that. Like, I love what you said. Like, you don't miss how you used to eat because you weren't feeling good. And so it's not like it does take effort, and the first few weeks can be a little bit challenging. But when you get to this place and are feeling so good, it's amazing.
I had to keep reminding myself because I did notice differences right away when I
Yeah.
started eating better. And I just kept reminding myself in my head of, I want to feel better than this.
Yeah.
And I also had a huge motivator. I found out I was going to be a grandmother and
Yeah.
for this time. And that was a huge motivating factor for me. I started before I knew I was going to be a grandma. Um, but I wasn't making much progress on my own. So when my motivating factor is that I want to be around to see her grow up.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
And you
that
knew you needed a little support to
Yes,
that happen.
yep. And it wasn't going to be, I don't know for sure, but I wanted to make sure I'm
Yeah.
around. And nobody has a guarantee,
Yeah.
but I can do a better job.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. They're not like it's not all in our control, but there are several factors that we can have a big impact on. And choosing how we eat, choosing how we move and are active, that does play a big role.
right. And I would like to, I do take some medication because I am diabetic.
Mhm.
And I would love to be one of those people who could completely go without the medication. Um, my doctor doesn't think that's a good idea for me. So right now I'm following their advice. But I would love to be one of those people who can just say, "Oh, I'm done with it." Well,
Uh,
I'm probably not a candidate for that, but what I have learned is I can work with it. I can. I don't need more and more medication. I'm taking the minimal amount. Um,
yeah,
and my doctor seems to feel that the way I'm eating and, uh, getting some exercise, not to the point where I was just absolutely obsessed with it before. Um, but I feel like I can work with the medication. I'm not needing more and more and more medication like I was for a while.
yeah. It's a little bit of support, but you're not relying on it to do all the heavy lifting of,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I
I
love
just
that attitude about it.
I told myself I have to, if I have to take it, I'm going to work with it. I don't want to need more.
Yep.
Um, and I think that the way that my lifestyle change, as far as what I'm eating, has been a huge contributor towards that. And my doctor has nothing but high praise for the changes I've made. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing too. Not that I'm,
Yeah.
relying on everything my doctor says, because I
Yeah.
did
But
some
it's
of these.
very encouraging to hear, to like for a doctor to see the positive impact that the changes are making on your health, your blood work, and all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know we are like we need to wrap up here soon, but I do want to touch real briefly. You kind of alluded to this, but the last, I don't know, month or so of your life has been super busy. And your daughter got married, you had to pack up where you were living and you moved to a new house. Um, and so I think I just wanted to bring this up because I think a lot of women can relate to like they can eat well for a while and then life gets busy or it gets stressful. You get out of the routines. And for a lot of people, then that can just like lead to months and months and months. And oftentimes, I hear people, I was doing really well for months and then it was really busy. And now it's 6 months, a year later, and I've gained all the weight back and then some. So I'd love to hear your perspective. I know, like, you kind of alluded to the fact that, like, you weren't quite the past few weeks at the same level, of eating carefully that you had been at. But now that that is like starting to quiet down, do you see yourself like in that typical pattern of, continuing to stray, or what did you learn from that? And yeah, where are you at now?
Well, it was so I knew all of this was coming into my life, and I anticipated this for quite some time and kind of worried about it because it was the first um, big disruption. And I knew it was going to be a disruption to my normal schedule,
Yeah.
my eating habits, just because of having we had a lot of family in town for my daughter's wedding, and then my daughter's wedding was one weekend, and my family was here until about 3 days before we moved. And while I was super thrilled to have them here, it was a disruption in the eating
Yeah.
pattern. No, we actually we didn't do a lot of restaurant eating. Um, we cooked at home, and luckily we have a small baby, and so it was more convenient to stay at
Yeah.
home and eat. But still, my routines were out of order.
Yeah.
And I have developed routines that I feel like are healthy
Yeah.
for me. And those things were out of order. And I actually ate fast food a couple times, and I haven't eaten fast food.
Mm.
I tried to make a healthier fast food choice,
Yep.
even though I know that it still wasn't the
Yes.
greatest thing. But it was feeling like my blood sugar was very low, and having nothing in the fridge because we had moved 3 days after my family left. And there literally was nothing in the fridge to eat.
Just needed something.
So the food was in the refrigerator at the apartments we moved
Mm.
out of, and there literally was nothing in the new refrigerator. So
Yes.
there was nothing. And I did try to keep like some protein bars on hand. I
Okay.
had eaten those. There was not a single one left in my car or my purse where I usually keep them.
The point of
Um,
desperation.
so I needed to do something. So
Yeah.
I resorted to the best fast food choice I could make.
Okay.
But I realized we had been moved into the new house, and this is after about 2.5 weeks of some serious disruption to my eating habits. I wasn't eating at the normal times I like to eat.
Yeah.
I wasn't having I like to have a protein shake in the morning,
Yeah.
and sometimes even another one mid-afternoon for me works out pretty well. And I wasn't getting those things in the way I would like to.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. I could physically feel it. And I couldn't wait to get things in my kitchen moved and organized so that I could get back to my normal eating habits, because I felt it. I would wake up in the morning and again feel like I hadn't slept.
Yes.
Um,
All the old things started coming back
it
in.
did. It did. I wasn't eating a lot of gluten or anything, but
Okay.
I had some. My skin was dry and itchy. Um, I and I had like my knees hurt. And
Wow.
that when my knees started hurting, that's when I knew, like, I hadn't had that in a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and so I knew I needed to get back. I couldn't wait to get things put away so that I could get back to my normal routine.
I mean,
Uh,
what an amazing sign that this has become your new lifestyle when the old habits are just coming in even a little bit and like you don't want it anymore. It's not.
I didn't. That was a huge motivating factor for me, is that I don't want to wake up feeling tired and exhausted after I've actually slept for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wake up with achy joints.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. A couple mornings it was just my knees, and then a couple mornings after that it was kind of almost my whole body. I just felt sort of
Wow.
lethargic, and I had a lot to do. I mean, I didn't have time to be lethargic.
Don't have time to be tired.
I didn't have
So
time
have
for
you
that.
been able to start getting back to your old routines?
I am. I'm probably not eating as much protein as I actually need
Okay.
just yet. But I am doing much better. I have kind of a standard grocery list that I go to when I'm uh, when I don't have a menu plan. But I
Okay.
like to make a menu plan. But
Yeah.
even if I don't have it, I have a standard grocery list that I kind of uh, fall back on.
Yeah.
And the only things coming into the house are things that are good for me. I don't have the opportunity
Yeah.
to eat not unclean or I don't know what I want to say.
Yeah.
I try not to bring those things into the house, and even if they are in the house, because it's not just me I have to think about.
Yeah.
Um, and Mike doesn't necessarily follow what I'm doing all the time.
Okay.
And so I do think about him too, but it's if he brings that stuff home, fortunately, I haven't fallen into the habit of
Mm.
eating. I might have a bite of something here and there, but I'm still primarily, following what I've learned. And um, I just feel so much better when I do that.
I love hearing that. And I mean, I think that, like, for everyone listening, it's just so encouraging. So, back in April, we're in beginning of November right now. So, back in April, you were like struggling with sugar and dealing with the cravings and feeling tired. And fast forward, what is it, maybe 6, 7 months? And like, you do have this new healthy lifestyle now that is something that, like, that is what you're craving. You're craving feeling good and waking up with
Yes,
energy and being in the habits and routines that you know will support that. And so, yeah, just for anyone who feels like if this just feels so hard, there is effort required to make some of these changes, but it is so worth it. And then you get to this point where it's like what you look forward to and what starts to feel natural.
it was really eye-opening to me to realize that I actually really craved those um, healthier options. I
Yeah.
couldn't wait to get back to uh, my healthier options, things that I knew worked better for me. The
Mm.
other thing was, when I first started this, I started. I mean, I literally didn't have sugar for months and months, except in fruit,
Okay.
and the weight didn't just fall off for me. I think my health issues kind of prevent that a little bit. It was slow going, but
Yeah.
I still wasn't frustrated because I felt so much better. Um, and now I can't say the weight's still falling off, but it's coming off slowly.
Hmm.
So I'm I'm okay with that because this is not just a change for tomorrow or next week or next month. This is a change for next year and the 10 years following that and the 10 years following that. I, you know, I can't I can't look at this as just being a short time. Oh, I lost, I've lost 10 pounds. Okay, well now I'm where I want to be, but I need to keep doing this, and it doesn't. I'm not so concerned about losing weight as I am feeling better. And
Yes.
for me, that's just the way my body
Yep.
has responded. Um, you know, it's different for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yep.
So
I think that's such a helpful mindset shift to make too. Like, yes, we can still want to lose weight and we can still like want to feel good and confident in our clothes. But as we start seeing it more as how we feel, I feel like that for a lot of people is more motivation to make those healthy choices than because you feel it right away. Like you don't lose the 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds, whatever overnight, but you can feel overnight like the sluggishness, the joint pain. And so sometimes I don't know if it is that more immediate impact that it's like, okay, it's not worth it because you can feel the difference so
And
quickly.
I literally this recent kind of upset to my schedule,
Yeah.
and I just knew that after a period of time I was going to be feeling yucky again, and I did.
Yeah.
But within, I would say, a day or like a day of going back to my normal eating habits, what have become normal eating habits, I felt way better.
Ah,
And
I
I'm
love
like,
it. And now you know what it takes. Like you know exactly what to do to feel better again.
yes, and like I said, I'm probably still not getting quite the amount of protein that I need, but
Okay.
I still feel
Mhm.
way better. And I'm so glad to get back to feeling better. And, I could have just stayed off the wagon, um, you know,
Yeah, and
but
that's what's easy for a lot of people to do. Like, I've already blown it. I'm still trying to get settled into my house. It could have been easy to just say, well, wait another week or 2 weeks or wait till after the holidays. I think that's a big one, but
yeah,
you didn't. Like you didn't use any of that as reasons. You just got right back to it.
Well, I knew that I wanted to feel better. So in my
Yeah.
mind, that was enough of a motivating factor that I knew I would feel better if I just got, one of the things that I was afraid of is that I had kind of gone a little bit off
Yep.
and eaten some things that I haven't eaten in a long time. And I was afraid that it would take a long time for me to feel better again, because I had strayed,
Yep.
from my normal eating routine. And I was afraid that it would take a long time and it wouldn't, you know, I'd be like, and I not get back to my normal eating habits, but it was much more quick. It happened much more quickly than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And it was almost literally like a day or
Uh,
2 days later when I'm like, oh, this is, oh, I remember this and I like it.
yes. Let's have more of that.
Yes.
And I think that is part of the reason why in Emerge we just work on putting in one or two habits at a time is because you did have this really healthy foundation of a healthy lifestyle, all these habits in place. And so you were able to go back to that pretty quickly. And then that's, when you start feeling better.
And I did kind of do it that way. I started thinking about, okay, I need to get back to it because I do want to feel better. So what is it that I need to start with? And I
Yeah.
just started putting those things back in and then went to the grocery store and I have that love-hate relationship with the grocery store.
Yes,
And
as many people do, especially with meal planning. There's a definite love-hate relationship with that.
but I found out that falling back to my standby grocery list, that I can buy stuff right off the top of my head and come home and I know what I'm going to make because it's
Yeah.
kind of my standard go-to. That worked,
Yeah.
And now I can start putting back some of those healthy food options that I have. I mean, I like my standard
Yep.
meal plan. I like that I can eat it all the time, but I also know that I need to put some other things in
Yeah.
there. I need
Little
to
variety.
do the zucchini lasagna. I need to, work on getting those veggies back in there because I like them.
Yep.
Um, and
Yeah,
so,
but I like your point there that you didn't feel like you had to go back and 100% do everything. Like there's still room. Like you can still get more protein in, but you just kind of thought through, okay, what do I need to start with? And I think, when we're creating a healthy lifestyle, that's what it's about is, okay, what is the foundation I need to start with? Just get something moving and then I can just fine tune it and
and
optimize it
I
as
have that now, whereas when I was kind of trying to do things on my own, I didn't have the knowledge.
Mhm.
But I learned so much and I learned it quickly, and the support and the, even the Facebook page and other suggestions from other people and recipes and things like that. Um, I was very motivated, so I was able to take it in quickly and start following those guidelines, which
Yep.
just helped a ton.
Mhm.
So now it's kind of routine for me. I know what I need if I'm in a bind for a meal. I know what I can pick up quick and bring home, and I have something, and
Yeah.
it still falls within my healthy eating guidelines.
Yep.
And I know what those are. Whereas before, I was kind of all over the place. I didn't know where to go with it. So I
Okay.
feel like I have a lot of direction.
Yeah. It sounds like you feel like a lot more confident now that you know what to do and like what you need to focus on. Because before we talked about you were doing all these things and just didn't, weren't seeing results. And now it feels like there's this confidence. Like you know what to do, you know how to eat. Even if you stray a little bit, you know exactly what to get back to. You don't have to search for the next diet or the next program to try,
Right.
but you just
Right.
have this now moving forward.
Yeah. And that is exactly how it is. I feel like I have, you know, direction in my eating lifestyle, I guess you would say.
Ah, I love that. Well, I know we've gone a little long. I appreciate you so much taking time to share your experience and just what you've learned and your wisdom. Do you have any last thoughts for anyone who's maybe contemplating, giving up sugar, creating a clean and mindful eating lifestyle, or contemplating joining Emerge? Any thoughts or bits of wisdom you would have for them?
You know, um, if asking me about it, I would say it was 100% worth it for me. I still have room for improvement. Um, but I feel like I've been very successful. Um, I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I know where I'm going. I don't have really a weight loss goal in mind at this point. I'm very happy to be feeling better and feeling confident that I know what I can put in my body to feel this way. And, so that I just feel better physically and mentally. Um, so, I think if somebody is looking for that, I would say 110% worth it. And the support from the group is huge too. So over these last few weeks, I haven't been able to attend our regular meetings. And I just was thinking yesterday, I've got to catch up.
There's something about doing it with other people and just people, women that are like just very kind and supportive and encouraging and honest about what's not going well and what is going well. It really does. It makes a big difference having that community.
The support is a huge thing for me. I'm one of those people who really responds well to um, I don't even want to say accountability, just the support.
Yeah.
The accountability to begin with, accountability was huge for me.
Yeah.
And accountability is still huge for me, but
Mhm.
it's also having that group of people to talk with and visit with and say, oh man, these last couple of weeks have been, you know,
Yeah.
so I would say 110% worth it if if somebody is looking for a lifestyle change, this is a great way to do it.
Oh, well, thanks, Barb. Thank you so much for taking time and just being so open and sharing so much, like being vulnerable about struggles and challenges and also the wins and successes you've had. So I think this will just be encouraging and give people hope and inspiration for themselves too.
I
So.
hope so too.
Yeah. All right. Well, you and I will talk again soon, but that's it for today. For those of you watching, if you are interested to learn more, if this, like what Barb is describing, this type of healthy lifestyle is what you are looking for yourself, then the next step would be to book a complimentary lose weight and keep it off consultation with me. So I will put a link to book one of those in the comments on Facebook and YouTube. And I would invite you to book that time for us to talk, and we can just talk more about what your goals are and whether or not Emerge can help you reach them. So, all right, goodbye, Barb, and everyone watching. I hope to talk to everyone again soon.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Barb.